This takes us to the next step. Now what we need to do is translate strategy into action. Understand how this overall HR strategy translates down to what we do inside the HR function. Here's how we do that. We should be able to take the strategy map and list those objectives down the left side of a table. And across the top, the core processes. So in this example, we might have HR processes like career development, hiring new people, offboarding, onboarding, organization design, and so forth. And what we should be able to do is rate and rank the impact and performance of each process against each strategic objective. You see, if a process supports an important strategic objective, it better have a high performance level. A simple example is if you go to Starbucks and they give you their own coffee, they'll just give you a second one for free. But for another order fulfillment process, like handing out babies at the hospital, they can't make a single mistake. So the idea is that process, handing out babies at the hospital, links to a very important strategic objective and therefore has to have a high performance level. So as we evaluate the performance of each process against each strategic objective, we can begin to evaluate whether the performance is good enough, whether it's slightly behind expectations or significantly behind expectations. Because the only way to truly evaluate whether a process is serving your needs or not is in light of that strategic need. So we can in fact add up the score across each strategic objective and show you a profile of how well each strategic objective is being supported by the existing processes. So the blue bar represents the level of process support that we currently have, and the gold is a gap between the current process capability and what's needed by this strategy. So in this case, we can clearly see where it is we should be focusing our attention at improving our strategic process performance levels. So we can do the same analysis, but now at the top, instead of looking at the processes, we're going to look at our projects or initiatives, programs for the coming year, and begin to see whether they are addressing the observed gaps. So if we score those, what we might see is if we list each of the strategic objectives across the bottom axis, we can chart with a red dot the relative level of impact from the existing project portfolio. Now, if we go back to the previous analysis and take a look at just the gold portion, the performance gap that exists, we would like to see the projects proportionally lining up to those gaps. But when we combine the charts, we see the following. Where we have a large performance gap in the processes, we don't have relatively that much investment in projects. In other cases, we have a significantly smaller performance gap from the processes and an overly large investment in projects. This is typical in our clients where we see there's a misalignment between the project portfolio and the current strategic need. Now, this isn't a precise science, but you can see with the order of magnitude gaps that we have in this example data, we don't need to be that precise before this becomes a useful leadership discussion tool. And eventually we can begin to align the portfolio against strategic need. Likewise, we can take the same analysis, in this case if we take a look at the objective of HR solutions, and begin to build a drill down or dashboard that looks at the things which are impacting those objectives. So in this case, on the dashboard, we'd expect to see information about career development, onboarding, organization design, and skills development. In other words, this same analysis underpins building of dashboards or impact diagrams. What does that look like? Well, we should be able to take that objective and drill into the things which are causing the performance which we're observing. What this allows us to do is to begin to gain an understanding of what's causing the performance and where should the leadership team be focusing. So in this case, we can clearly see that onboarding is an issue. Within onboarding, our mentoring program, and within the mentoring program, all aspects of it need some focus. So this allows management to quickly gain an understanding of what's causing the top level performance and begin identifying who in the organization they should be contacting to understand more detail.